How's it going, guys? So in this video I'm going to show you what this clutch bypass harness is and how it might be able to save your engine. I'll show you guys how to install this in a second. It's extremely easy, but first I'm going to give a quick demonstration of what it actually does and how it can save your thrust bearing. Here's my MK6 Golf R. It's kind of half taken apart right now, so I can actually show you what I'm talking about using this engine over here. So I have a block right here. Here's the crankshaft, and the crankshaft is held in place in and out by a thrust bearing. So the thrust bearing prevents the crankshaft from moving in and out along the shaft. The thrust bearing is a crucial part of the engine, and if it does wear out, it will lead to catastrophic engine failure. The main way that a thrust bearing fails is by lack of lubrication when you're starting your engine, because when you're starting the engine and pushing in the clutch, it puts an axial load on the crank, which means that the thrust bearing is now riding up against the crankshaft with no lubrication. So the thrust bearing in typical usage, let's just use this, I guess, for an example. Let's say the thrust bearing is kind of just loosely turning. It's just kind of keeping the crank in place without too much force. Now when you press on the clutch, it's the equivalent of pressing down on this with a force. So now when you try to turn this, it obviously is going to be scraping up against whatever it's touching. In the engine's case, it's touching the crankshaft. So that is now, it's got a load on it like that, and now it's grinding up against the crank. So when the engine's running, that's not that big of a deal because there's plenty of lubrication between those two surfaces, which is your engine oil. However, when you're starting your car after it's been sitting, gravity has pulled that lubrication down to the bottom of the oil pan. So while there is still some lubrication there, it is not properly lubricated. There's going to be that load, and now you're grinding that. That is the number one way that the thrust bearing will get worn down. It will get worn down too much to the point where there's too much play in the crankshaft, and that's when you have your problem. There are plenty of guys out there who have had catastrophic engine failure for this exact reason. So that's where this clutch bypass harness comes in. This is extremely easy to install. I just got it in a group buy. I got it for $35 shipped. Generally you can still get it for about $45, or you can find out how to make it yourself. It's not overly complicated. Obviously you'd have to do some research on how to make it. So here's how you would install it. Obviously you're gonna have a lot more on your car than this, but it's still extremely straightforward. So you want to pop your hood. You might be okay with your air intake installed depending on which one you have. Most of them will come right around here, but if you have to uninstall that, that's no big deal. They all take a few minutes to uninstall anyway. So you want to remove your battery as well. And then here, right here, is the harness. So you can see it right there. If you have small hands, you might be able to reach back there without removing the battery tray, but I'm a pretty big person and I have pretty big hands, so I cannot get in there. Removing the battery tray is extremely easy and will free you up a lot of space. There's only 3 13mm bolts right here, and that'll pull right off. So now, as you can see, we have plenty of room to get our hands in there. It's still a little bit tight getting your thumb up to the top of the connector. As you can see, the tab is, let me try to point to it, that right there. The tab's on top of the connector, so getting your thumb over there is a little bit tough, but a screwdriver makes it really easy. There you go. Okay, there you go. You can see that that's the same connector. It's got 5 terminals all in a straight line, which is the same as this one. So now you'll just want to match up the male and female sides. This looks like a female side, so I'll just have to bring my male side over to that. Here I got the male on the harness. And now I'll just have to bring this over here. Okay, that's definitely sturdy. There is a little bit of slack in this, and it might rattle around a little bit, but what you can do is zip tie that right to this brake line right here. So just a quick note, this is a left-hand drive car, so my clutch is on the left-hand side. But if you have a right-hand drive car, it is going to be over here, and you are going to probably have to remove more of your intake and you know, your MAF sensor, all that stuff over here. And you know, it should be right over there in this area. But either way, it's a very quick install. It was cheap, and it's going to save my engine potentially. I would typically test to make sure that this worked, but as you can tell, my car is half taken apart still. I'm putting it back together right now, but I'm not in a position to actually test it. But I should be able to fire it up this week, so I should be able to test it then. So I just wanted to get this video out really quick to you guys because a bunch of people ordered this in a group buy, so I'm just trying to get this out just so you guys can see it. But I mean, this is so simple, a DIY is not really needed. So that's why I decided to make this video more of like an informational kind of video so that more people can learn about this and hopefully save their engines from thrust bearing failure. I'm so behind on editing videos, so I figured I might as well just give you guys a quick little update for anyone who's interested. So the most recent video I have out right now is, I think, removing the intake manifold. So actually, coincidentally, I'm putting the intake manifold back on right now, but in between then and now, I actually removed the engine, installed the new engine, did a lot of things. So now I have just the intake manifold that's getting put on, runner flap delete, new Mabotech injectors. I 3D printed some injector clips because one of mine broke, and I have upgraded fuel pressure return valve and big turbo kit. So all that stuff is going on today and tomorrow. I figured I'd just give you guys a quick update for anyone who's interested on what's actually going on at the moment in December. Thanks again for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.